escalating tensions contain predominantly hostile imperialist propaganda towards the DPRK. The Morning Star's pro-imperialist positions are reprehensible and a disgrace. Our role in the KFA is to expose and refute US imperialist lies about the DPRK and to defend the DPRK, to defend people's career, to defend its legitimate right and to defend and protect its sovereignty, to defend its democratic socialist system. So on the platform today, we're very, very fortunate to have Dr. Dermot Hudson, who's made a lengthy journey up the motorway. About 6 hours he's taken, well, at least seven hours to get to the venue today. So and he's the only visitor to the DPRK in the last 5 years.
Right. Thank
Please,
you very much, Peter, for that
Well,
introduction. Excellent speech, and hearing it, I felt I didn't really need to say anything tonight, but I'm going to say quite a lot. I've got a bit of a long speech, a little bit longer than I intended, but there's so much to talk about. Firstly, I'd like to say it's great to be here again in Liverpool. I think this is my 7th visit, and it's great to be here in the Casa Bar, a venue that is associated with labour movement struggles, such as the Dockers strike and the Spanish Civil War, just to name a few. Tonight, I'm going to cover several themes or topics: the threats against people's career, the lies and propaganda against people's career, and lastly, I'm going to speak about my own visit in April. I will just start by commenting on two things. Firstly, I'm sure that this question is going to come up. What happens now that Trump has won the US presidential election? Will there be negotiations between the DPRK and the US? Well, I think it's very hard to predict the course of Trump's actions, but I'm going to make the following observations. Firstly, this time around, the DPRK didn't comment very much on the US presidential elections, apart from one comment, which I'm going to quote. And here's the quote: "Amid the full-dress presidential election race in the US, Trump, who has been officially confirmed as a candidate for the Republican Party, said in his speech of acceptance for candidate that I got along with them, and it is nice to get along with someone who has a lot of nuclear weapons and otherwise." That's Trump saying that, thus buoying a lingering desire for the prospects of DPRK-US relations. If any administration takes office in the US, the political climate, which is confused by the infighting of the two parties, does not change, and accordingly, we do not care about this. It is true that Trump, when he was president, tried to reflect the special personal relations between the heads of state and the relations between states, but he did not bring about any substantial positive change. And this was from the Korean Central News Agency, 23rd of July. And the commentary added, "For nearly 80 years since the founding of the DPRK, the US has pursued the most vicious and persistent hostile policy towards it." And secondly, I would sort of also point out that the DPRK's nuclear weapons are now the state law of the DPRK, and they are non-negotiable. The nuclear status of the DPRK is irreversible, end of story. So basically, if there are any negotiations between the US and the DPRK, they will not be about denuclearisation. That will not be put on the table. But as I said, Trump is a very unpredictable figure, so we do not know what could develop. I think it's also very necessary to comment, and you know, when we were sort of getting ready for the meeting, I heard a couple of people talking about it, to comment about the wild stories being floated in the mainstream media about the supposedly the troops of the Korean People's Army, the DPRK, being in the Ukraine. Neither Russia or the DPRK has officially confirmed the dispatch of KPA soldiers to the Ukraine. And indeed, the DPRK Foreign Minister Kim Jong-un on the 25th of October described it as a rumour. The Guardian, you know, that's bastion of middle-class liberalism and loosely-eating vegans, and others in the mainstream media are trying to paint what are unconfirmed rumours as established facts, even though there is not a single shred of evidence to back up the story. And in fact, at no point in its history has the DPRK ever sent 15,000 troops or even 10,000 troops to fight outside the country. It is true that in the past the DPRK sent Air Force pilots and artillery units and tunnelling units to Vietnam to assist the Vietnamese people in their war against the US, but this in no way came to about 10,000 people. Also, the Air Force of the KPA sent pilots to Egypt and Syria in the 1973 war, but again, the numbers were not large. And the DPRK has sent very small numbers of troops or advisors, mostly military advisors and trainers, to a number of countries, particularly a number of African countries. But again, it's nowhere. It was nowhere near 10,000. In fact, the DPRK can't send large numbers of troops abroad because it is, as Peter was saying in his introduction, it is in full frontal confrontation with US imperialism, which has 30,000 troops in the south, and the fascist Republic of Korea, South Korea. So it can't sort of send masses of numbers of troops all round the globe. They are needed in the DPRK to defend the DPRK. The reports in the mainstream media, if you study them, are actually very contradictory. Different numbers are reported, such as 10,000, 15,000, 12,000, or I saw 8,000 the other day. Maybe the number will go down and down. Maybe it'll be 10,000, 8,000, 2,000, and that'll end up about a couple of hundred, or even none at all. Some, they can't even agree on the figures, which shows you they are making this up. And some Western media outlets say that KPA troops have yet to arrive in Ukraine. Others say they're there already. Not only there already, but they're actually fighting. So make up your mind. Are they on their way, or are they already there fighting? And of course, in my opinion, if there were such huge numbers of KPA troops in Ukraine fighting on the Russian side, it would be all over for Ukraine within a few days. Needless to say, the evidence for KPA troops in the Ukraine has shown to be clumsy and blatant forgeries. Now, I don't know about the report that Peter was quoting, but the report someone flagged up in KFA, and we subjected it to analysis, showed a supposedly dead soldier, not a mark on him, looked very well, laying down on the ground, and supposedly a KPA identity card. Now that's an interesting point because no one knows whether the KPA actually carry identity cards. When I've been in the DPRK, I've seen the civilian identity cards, which are actually fairly small and quite different. Whereas this was like a piece of card, like dare I say, a bit like an old CPGB membership card, you know, from the 70s or 80s. You know, and a couple of people pointed out the picture had been badly photoshopped. It was clearly, you know, from two pictures. And the so-called KPA identity card actually was in Korean characters, but it was in the font of a South Korean company. So, you know, we all know who is behind that forgery. The issue of the DPRK in Ukraine is being used to further demonise and put pressure on the DPRK. On the 5th of November, the foreign ministers of Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, and of course the United Kingdom, United States, and the High Representative of the European Union issued a very pompous statement condemning the DPRK and the fake grounds that it sent troops to the Ukraine, and spoke of, I quote, a coordinated response to this new development, unquote, which I can only guess means more sanctions and pressure against the DPRK, possibly the closure of some DPRK embassies in Europe. And in October, the new British Foreign Secretary David Lammy visited South Korea on the 21st of October. And by the way, isn't that a video by George Galloway about David Lammy so funny? Big Daddy Lammy and me, that's so funny. But anyway, that's another issue. And Lammy issued a joint statement with the South Korean fascist puppets. What his visit demonstrated that the British reactionaries are joining hands with the South Korean fascist puppets against People's Korea, and are actually conspiring with them to overthrow the socialist system in the DPRK. This visit by a British Foreign Secretary to South Korea came not long after the drone intrusion into the DPRK, which I'm going to speak about in a few minutes. So basically, by timing the video, timing the visit at that time, Lammy is basically condoning and encouraging the South Korean puppets in their anti-DPRK actions. British policy on the DPRK is based on lies and untruths, like the idea that the DPRK sent all these troops supposedly to the Ukraine, like the the idea that supposedly there are human rights violations in the DPRK, which they're not. So the policy of the British government is just based on all these myths. And I think it's regrettable that although the government in the UK changed hands in the last few months, back in July, the new, no people are going to say, well, what did you expect? The new government's policy to the DPRK is the same as its predecessor. It's the same as Sunak, Truss, Boris Johnson, Theresa May, dodgy Dave Cameron, and all the rest of them. It continues with the hostile policy towards the DPRK, backing both the US imperialists and the scum-like South Korean puppets. So Lammy's basically continuing with British imperialism's hostile policy towards the DPRK and reinforcing